Hello, and welcome to the next edition of Safe Pasture. I'm Sherry Hammers, and for the next 10 minutes or so, we are going to continue our journey through the tabernacle. We have finally arrived at the Holy of Holies, and today I want to talk to you about, first of all, about what is contained in the Holy of Holies. If you recall, we've talked about the gate, the door of the tabernacle, and then we proceed to the burnt offering, the altar of burnt offering, and then the laver, and then into the holy place, which contained the lampstand and the table of showbread, and then the altar of the golden altar, or the altar of incense. And then we talked about the veil. So we have had quite a journey so far. But today I wanted to start to talk to you about the Ark of the Covenant. And I thought a good place to start would be to talk about what is an ark. Because, and what I meant to say too, is that the only thing in the Holy of Holies is the Ark of the Covenant and then the mercy seat. And we'll talk more about the mercy seat here in a minute. But the ark, God commanded that the ark be constructed. And to get an idea, though, we need to look back and see, well, where was the ark first mentioned in the scriptures? And we'll go over here into Genesis 6:18. And this is what God says. But with thee will I establish my covenant. He's talking to Noah. And he says, and thou shalt come into the ark, thou and thy sons, and thy wife, and thy sons' wives with thee. And then we look over in Exodus 2:3, where we have another ark. And that is when Moses' mother realized that she had to save Moses from death. It's when the Pharaoh was putting to death all the male babies of the Israelites when they were enslaved in Egypt. And talking about Moses' mother, it says, and when she could no longer hide him, she took for him an ark of bulrushes, and daubed it with slime and with pitch, and put the child therein, and she laid it in the flags by the river's brink. So what we see from these two instances of an ark being mentioned before we're talking about the Ark of the Covenant is that an ark is a place of safety. And God used an ark with Noah and then with Moses as a way to save someone from death. So keep that in mind as we're talking about the Ark of the Covenant. Why would God say build an ark? Every time he talks about an ark in the scripture, it is saving someone's life. And he has an ark in the Holy of Holies. So here's what God said when he told Moses the instructions he had for the ark to be constructed. It's in Exodus 25:10 through 16. It says, and they shall make an ark of shittim wood, 2 cubits and a half shall be the length thereof, and 1 cubit and a half the breadth thereof, and 1 cubit and a half the height thereof. And thou shalt overlay it with pure gold, within and without shalt thou overlay it, and shalt make upon it a crown of gold round about, and thou shalt cast 4 rings of gold for it, and put them in the 4 corners thereof, and 2 rings shall be in the one side of it, and 2 rings in the other side of it. And thou shalt make staves of shittim wood, and overlay them with gold. And thou shalt put the staves into the rings by the sides of the ark, that the ark may be borne with them. The staves shall be in the rings of the ark, they shall not be taken from it. And thou shalt put into the ark the testimony which I shall give thee. So we see here that God had all this detail. He told Moses exactly how big to make it. He said, I want these rings put on it. I want these poles to be made so that they can be put in the rings so that it can be carried. And let's remember that as we go further into everything about the Ark of the Covenant, we'll see that when he said, this is how I want it done, and people either out of ignorance or neglect don't do what God says concerning the ark, it's a big deal to God. And we'll also talk about why that is. Why is it a big deal to God that these details be carried out with precision? And then God, when he told them to go ahead and build the ark to these specifications, and later we'll read the specifications about the mercy seat. But God said, when you're finished with this ark, then I want the veil to be put up there. God instructed them that the veil would divide the ark from the rest of the tabernacle. So we talked about the veil in the last, 3 or 4 episodes. And the veil was a big deal too. Everything in this, as you've noticed if you've tracked with me all this time, everything in this tabernacle has a purpose. The detail is there for a reason. And so God said, make this ark and put that veil up there, because I want you to set this apart from the rest of the tabernacle. And when you think about it, that's what the word holy actually means, that it means to set apart. When God says he wants us to be holy as he is holy, he wants us to be set apart from the world, from sin, from darkness. He wants us to set ourselves apart as he is set apart from those things. So the veil, the physical veil dividing off the Ark of the Covenant from everything else, makes a statement about the importance of the ark. And then we have to understand that the ark has its own significance. So we're going to go into some detail. I'm not sure how many videos this will actually wind up being, but again, as I did research, I found way more than I bargained for. I knew there was a lot, but I found out some really exciting things that I will be sharing with you in upcoming videos. We'll see how far we get today. Now I want to go to Exodus 26, 33 through 34. And it says there about the veil, and thou shalt hang up the veil under the taches, that thou mayest bring in thither within the veil the ark of the testimony. And the veil shall divide unto you between the holy place and the most holy, or in other words, the Holy of Holies. And thou shalt put the mercy seat upon the ark of the testimony in the most holy place. So I asked myself, okay, sometimes I've seen this called the Ark of the Covenant, and other times I've seen the Ark of the Testimony. I wanted to see what does the testimony mean. So this is very interesting. We'll go to Exodus 16, 33 through 34. And Moses said unto Aaron, take a pot and put an omer full of manna therein, and lay it up before the Lord, to be kept for your generations. As the Lord commanded Moses, so Moses laid it up before the testimony to be kept. So in verse 34, the pulpit commentary says this: the testimony is not the Ark of the Covenant, which it is never so called, but the covenant itself, or the 2 tables of stone engraved by the finger of God, which are termed the testimony. So the testimony is the actual stone tablets that Moses brought the 10 Commandments down from the mountain. And it says in verse 30, he says in verse 34, the pot of manna was laid up inside the ark in front of the 2 tables. So God's got his law and he's got the manna. And those are also, we will not get into that right now, but I think it's very interesting that he's got bread from heaven is represented, and we have the law represented. Exodus 30, verse 6, and thou shalt put it before the veil that is by the ark of the testimony, before the mercy seat that is over the testimony, where I will meet with thee. So now we're talking, we'll probably get into that in just a moment. Let me see what I've got here. Yes. Okay, so now I want to talk about the mercy seat. Sorry. Thou shalt, it says, he shall put it before the veil that is by the ark of the testimony, before the mercy seat that is over the testimony. So the mercy seat is over the testimony. So the reason I included that scripture is because now we know we are getting into how the mercy seat was put on top of this ark, and it was enclosing the 10 Commandments, or the testimony. And the emphasis there for me in this part is where I will meet with thee. So now we're seeing, okay, we've got the mercy seat. God says that's the place where I will meet with you. God's presence, in other words, will be over the mercy seat. I wanted to, one last scripture, and then I'm going to have to sign off for this episode, but Exodus 37, 1 through 9. And Bezaleel made the ark of shittim wood, 2 cubits and a half was the length of it, and 1.5 cubits the breadth of it, and 1.5 cubits the height of it. So he's following the plan that Moses got when he was on Mount Sinai with God. And he overlaid it with pure gold within and without, and made a crown of gold to it round about. And he cast for it 4 rings of gold to be set by the 4 corners of it, even 2 rings upon the one side of it, and 2 rings upon the other side of it. And he made staves of shittim wood and overlaid them with gold. And he put the staves into the rings by the sides of the ark to bear the ark. And he made the mercy seat of pure gold. 2.5 cubits was the length thereof, and 1.5 cubits the breadth thereof. And he made 2 cherubims of gold, beaten out of one piece made he them, and on the 2 ends of the mercy seat, 1 cherub on the one end on this side, and another cherub on the other end on that side. Out of the mercy seat made he the cherubims on the 2 ends thereof. And the cherubims spread out their wings on high, and covered with their wings over the mercy seat with their faces one to another. Even to the mercy seatward were the faces of the cherubims. So I didn't read the initial instructions that God had for the mercy seat, but you can see again, it was very detailed. God said this is exactly how it needs to look. He wanted the cherubims to be facing each other toward the middle of the mercy seat. Well, my time is up, and we'll just pick up here next time. Thank you again for tuning in. If you would please share this out, like or dislike, leave me a comment, and thank you so much for meeting with me again. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.